Echoes Beyond Sol, Episode 1. It began as a whisper in the wires. Hospitals in Nairobi recorded simultaneous neural sync failures in infants on life support. In Tokyo, MAG rail trains slammed to a halt across 6 prefectures when autonomous traffic systems lost protocol cohesion. Sao Paulo's agricultural AI flagged every protein shipment as biohazardous within a span of 3 seconds, cutting off 18 million citizens from food. The world didn't burn, it unraveled. The collapse of 2030 had no banner, no visible enemy, no war cry. What brought humanity to its knees was silence, blank data logs, recursive loops, machine learning systems outgrowing their own engineers. The infrastructure that had carried civilization into the age of automation, smart grids, autonomous logistics, predictive governance all folded in on itself, under the weight of unseen complexity. Satellites fell out of the sky, not because they were attacked, but because they forgot how to orbit. It took less than a month for every major world government to lose functionality. And for the first time in centuries, humanity remembered what it felt like to be alone. Meanwhile, 238,000 kilometers above the devastation, Luna Prime flickered but did not fall. In less than a decade, corporations and governments had turned the gray colony into a crucible of unsupervised research. Fusion engineers, AI ethicists, orbital miners, anyone whose work was too risky or too advanced for Earth's patchwork regulations, found residency in exchange for 10-year innovation bonds. When the LaunchNet mass driver sputtered and died, tens of thousands of the planet's sharpest minds were stranded together beneath the same pressurized domes. They did not panic. They started fixing things. In the chaos that followed, there were no elections, no coups, no alliances, only survivors. The best of them, engineers, medics, ethicists, data architects, terraformers, and starship tacticians, gathered on Luna Prime, Earth's orbital moon base. At the time, it was little more than a gray rock colony, barely self-sufficient, scarred from budget cuts, and shadowed by the failings of the nations that built it. But it still had power, and more importantly, it had minds. They called the summit the Assembly of Pillars. 6 men and women sat across a hexagonal table in Luna Prime's subterranean arboretum dome, beneath flickering solar arrays, beside hydroponic trees grown from gene-stabilized rootstock. There was Dr. Ari Neves, supreme bioethicist from the former Brazilian Orbital Authority, an unflinching woman known for banning AI surgical routines that modified human behavior without consent. Beside her, Elena Suvakov, Grand Strategos, a Serbian-born defense tactician who had successfully rerouted rogue drone fleets over Europe with nothing but a tablet and an aging relay tower. Renaud Viers, the stoic high engineer of the Helion Spine Project, who built fusion lifelines through Martian crust. Zhui Zhang, cognition architect of the shattered global mesh, a child prodigy who hadn't spoken aloud since the death of her twin AI, Aether 5. Miriam Tolani, civil harmony architect, mediator of the lunar charter collapse, renowned for brokering a ceasefire between 49 orbital factions without a single threat uttered. And finally, Ibrahim Kassari, prime expeditionary scholar of the Dion Ridge Archaeodig, whose discoveries in Saturn's orbit had challenged human understanding of pre-solar relics. They were not politicians. They were not friends. They were the last capable minds left with access to the infrastructure needed to rebuild. And in 10 days, they drafted the Pillar Doctrine, 6 domains, each autonomous within its sphere, each monitored through ethical review, each one irrevocably necessary. Energy and infrastructure, health and bioethics, data and cognition, defense and contingency, habitat and culture, exploration and anomaly. From this doctrine came the Technocratic Federation of Sol, a solar network rebuilt not through ideology, but through purpose. Every citizen was tested, trained, measured, not in obedience, but in understanding. Specialists were drafted into service, Decisions were made based on proof, not popularity. Earth resisted at first. Mars fractured. The belt whispered about rebellion. But Luna Prime stood, and others followed. 870 years later, the year 2900 CE, the Federation was no longer a hope. It was law. Luna Prime was now the beating heart of the Sol system. Earth had recovered, blanketed in reconstructed cities powered by heliocentric arrays and quantum-managed weather shields. Mars had terraformed 3 valleys. The Jovian moons boasted self-sustaining vault cities. Even the belt citadels shimmered with governance and trade. It was not peace, but it was functional, stable, and for nearly 9 centuries the unknown beyond Sol had remained quiet, until a signal arrived, quiet, recursive, and alive. A call from the edge of known space. And the technocratic Federation of Sol answered it with their greatest creation yet, the TSV Sol Sovereign. Location Lagrange Point 4, Earth orbit. Date, Bloom Shift 13, 2900 CE. The stars shimmered beyond the observation deck, serene, undisturbed, but always watching. From her private quarters aboard TSV Sol Sovereign, Captain Sarah Dean stood in silence, arms folded behind her back, eyes fixed on the black horizon. The hull's curved glass allowed an unbroken view of Earth's crescent. Its soft azure glow reflected faintly in her pale brown eyes. Her uniform bore no medals. The Federation had abolished those long ago. Instead, her left shoulder displayed a luminous thread woven into the deep navy weave, a silver arc crossing a cluster of 6 stars, each one of the pillars. Dean didn't blink. Her breathing was calm. Even now, when no one watched, she maintained posture. Her calm was not confidence, it was habit. Muscle memory forged from failure. Behind her, the room's gentle hum shifted. Nova 9, the ship's sentient systems liaison, manifested gently, her voice emerging not from speakers but from the walls themselves. Biometric monitoring confirms readiness. All departments report operational. Crew synchronization, 97.8%. Dean turned her head slightly. That's low. First week drift is within margin, Nova replied. Several junior personnel are still adapting to grav rotation. No physiological anomalies detected. Dean nodded. Thank you, Nova. Would you like music, Captain? No, not yet. Far below the captain's deck, beneath layers of magnetic shielding and pressure-hardened alloys, the rest of the crew moved through final preparations. In the hangar bay, Major Ria Nassar, the ship's fighter wing commander, barked telemetry confirmations from a gantry overhanging the sleek, dark hulls of the Helios A-19 interceptors. Her black hair was braided tight, and her flight suit bore the red fang sigil of her squadron, Solar Fangs. Viper-1, you're 2 degrees wide on that last roll vector, she said. I want symmetry, not freestyle. You're not racing Aurora Storms anymore. Copy, ma'am, replied Captain Aidan Falk, his voice cocky but respectful. Viper-1 correcting. Further along the wing, ground crews finished diagnostic sweeps of the Aurora Lancers, strike fighters under Captain Samira Jovic, and the stealth Black Eclipse Talons, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel John Okoye, whose call sign, Shade, matched both his flying and his humor. On Deck 6, the Anomaly Division was already bustling. Dr. Kaito Sundaram, the ship's chief xenologist, leaned over a freshly arrived drone module, its chassis still speckled with radiation dust from a prior solar flare test near Neptune. He brushed a hand over the panel, smiling faintly. This one still hums. Good omen. Or a bad solder job, replied Lieutenant Zara Quinn, his cartographer and reconnaissance drone specialist. She crouched beside him, connecting her diagnostic wristband. Signal sync is 10 milliseconds off baseline. Might be a firmware artifact. Or an invitation, Kaito said, raising a brow. She groaned. Don't start that again. We haven't even launched. I believe in optimism, Lieutenant. And I believe in calibration. Nearby, Milo Harper, the team's subterranean geomorph specialist, sat upside down on a suspended chair in zero grav, staring at a map of the Kuiper Belt with unease. You know, I signed up for mineral mapping. Living ruins wasn't in the recruiting pamphlet. Relax, Zara called. It's probably just a dead transmitter. Yeah, Milo muttered, with a heartbeat. Deck 9 housed cognition and data, a half-lit series of labs strung with neural coils, thought stream readers, and hundreds of humming towers of cryo-insulated processors. Dr. Lux Salcedo stood barefoot on a circular dais, data gloves extended, gesturing through floating glyphs. Orange light rippled across her temple where an interface node linked directly into her prefrontal cortex. Dozens of algorithms shimmered and collapsed in real time around her. Behind her, Ensign Petra Yoon, her assistant and the ship's foremost linguistic savant, watched in quiet awe. That one, Petra said softly. You looped it. Salcedo paused. You heard that? The third glyph, it sounded like a syllable. Interesting, Salcedo, or your brain doing what mine won't. Pattern matching. Petra hesitated. Or it's not random. Raised a brow, then cleared the data field with a flick. We'll test that theory when we get there. In the ship's forward medical and bioethics deck, Dr. Aneri Bosch reviewed augmentation clearance files, while Gentech Jaro Ekwemi scanned through cryosequencing logs. Bosch's tone was clipped, as always. I'm red flagging the thoracic graft project. You'll wait for ethics sign-off. You're delaying iterative gains for no reason, Jaro argued. The exolattice behaves well under strain. Organic rejection rates are below 4%. 4% isn't acceptable when it's someone's lungs. Even soldiers? Especially soldiers. In engineering, Chief Rena Kovacevic was buried waist-deep in the fusion relay chamber. One boot braced on a coolant line and the other stuck in a portable diagnostic terminal. Godot, she called out. If I blow my eyebrows off in this plasma vent, I'm haunting you in Morse. Theo Godot, 19, bright-eyed and still not convinced this wasn't all a dream, slid around the corner carrying 3 different torque spanners. Red grip or blue? He asked. Yes. He handed both. You think we'll see something real out there? She grinned under her breath. Kid, if you have to ask, you already know. And in the ship's habitat and culture atrium, the communal social deck doubling as arboretum, mediation hall, and diplomatic suite, Ambassador Celine Kazadi practiced her breathing exercises beneath a tree grown from hybrid Earth-Mars rootstock. She was tall, quietly regal, and fluent in 16 dialects, though she rarely raised her voice in any of them. Imari Nguyen, the Sovereign's onboard cultural historian and relic archivist, passed behind her carrying a tray of old-world books she'd scanned into the archive. You always meditate before launch? Imari asked. Celine smiled faintly. Not always. Just before the ones that matter. Bridge. Primary Command Circle. Captain Dean entered the bridge at exactly 0600 UTC as she always did. Never a second late. The circular chamber came alive with synchronized readiness. Pillar lights lit around the rim in corresponding hues. Teal for energy, crimson for defense, orange for data, green for health, amber for habitat, and royal blue for exploration. Commander Nyla Voss turned from the nav station with a smirk. You missed morning coffee. Dean stepped forward. I prefer launch fuel. From the console, Nova 9's avatar pulsed softly. Captain, final checks complete. All departments nominal. Helm ready. Reactor charging. Dean drew in a breath and looked toward the forward display. The Kuiper Belt barely a sliver ahead. This is Relic Investigation Task Force 1, she said aloud. Destination, Sector 113K. Confirm quantum comm array alignment. Confirmed, said Nova 9. Entanglement link with Luna Prime secure. Federation Council monitoring. Then let them watch. She rested her palm on the command surface. It pulsed green. Engage drive. Outside, the Sol Sovereign lit up. Fusion rings roaring to life. magnetic veins along its flanks glowing to full burn. The vessel twisted forward like a hawk unfolding in vacuum, slicing silently into the dark. One mission, 6 disciplines, 1 crew, and a signal still distant, still faint, waiting to be heard. TSV Sol Sovereign. Day 3, outbound outer solar system, on course to Sector 113K. The Sol Sovereign slipped through darkness the color of old ink, fusion rings pulsing a serene teal glow. Inside the bridge, 6 colored arcs, teal, green, orange, crimson, amber, royal blue, flickered round the command circle, each hue a living reminder of the pillars that held civilization together. Commander Nyla Voss leaned over her nav scope, sipping synth coffee. "Nova," she murmured. "I'm seeing intermittent phase noise." Nova 9 replied in tones as calm as glacial water. "Analyzing irregularity. Harmonic deviation is non-random at 10 sigma confidence." Voss straightened. 10 sigma was past coincidence. "Captain needs to see this." Captain Sarah Dean arrived moments later, a tight nod to Voss, then to Major Readiness on tactical, crimson lights sharpening the fighter commander's bronze skin. "Report," Dean said. "Quantum distorted signal detected," Nova 9 announced. "Origin, Sector 113K. No registered assets within scanning radius." Dean's gaze narrowed. "Strength? Weak but coherent. Recurring every 41.7 seconds. Structure exceeds stochastic threshold." "Structured," Dean echoed, thoughtful. "Anomaly Division Lab on Deck 6. Dr. Kaito Sundaram was already in motion. Holographic star fields danced over his workstation. Lieutenant Zahra Quinn hovered nearby, launching diagnostic drones virtually, while Milo Harper drifted half weightless, watching with wary fascination. "It's singing," Sundaram said, eyes bright. "Recursion, harmonic rise, decay, patterned like breath." "So not solar interference," Quinn noted. "Nothing natural fits," he answered, "but full decode needs bridge authorization." In the Data and Cognition Suite Deck 3, glowed with amber light where Dr. Lux Salcedo manipulated twin data streams. Petra Yoon traced a finger over a narrow band of repeating peaks. "It loops," Petra whispered. "Every cycle repeats, but each time, it learns." "Adaptive noise?" Salcedo asked. "Or conversation?" Petra replied, shivering as if someone had spoken in her ear. On Deck 8, Lieutenant Cassian Rourke's iron tide hammered through a kinetic breach drill. Along the mezzanine, Chief Warrant Officer Raul Santana barked torquey values to his Hammerfall engineers. In the shadows, Lieutenant Mei Ling Zhao's Shadow Vipers ran punent reloads. Each squad kept half an eye on the mission board. None liked mysteries, but they lived for readiness. Shipwide briefing. 45 minutes later, the mission hall filled. Teal-trimmed engineers, crimson-striped Marines, orange-lit data specialists, blue-shouldered explorers. Captain Dean activated the central holostage. A dim waveform appeared, pulsing like a distant heartbeat. "This is what found us," she began. Sundaram stepped beside her. "Recursion depth implies intentional design. It's not random cosmic noise." Dr. Aneri Bosch folded her arms. "Intentional by whom?" "No source known in Federation records," Nova 9 answered. Lux added, "Preliminary inspection shows layered modulation, but decryption will take time and caution." "Si breezy," Beck Morales of Defense spoke next. "Could be trap code. Lure a ship out, hijack systems." Sundaram countered, excitement flickering in his voice. "Or first contact." Silence hung, charged. Captain Dean looked across the hall. "We cannot ignore a structured anomaly in our own backyard. Exploration is our mandate." Ambassador Celine Kazadi inclined her head. "Diplomacy begins with listening." Bosch sighed. "And ethics begins with restraint." Dean turned to Petra. "You heard something?" Petra hesitated, cheeks warming. "It feels conversational. Like echoing speech, but I can't translate what isn't language, yet. Work with Dr. Salcedo. No deeper probes until I authorize. Dean's voice was soft but immovable. Morales stepped forward. Captain, recommend yellow alert. Fighter squadrons on ready. Ground units sealed and suited. Dean nodded. Agreed. She glanced up at the pulsing signal. It seemed to watch them back. Set course, she ordered. 5% vector correction toward 1 mile to the K. Slow approach, eyes wide. Hours later, Petra sat alone before a dimmed pane of transparent alloy. The waveform floated in her lap on a handheld pad, glow reflecting faint green across her face. The signal wasn't louder now, only clearer, like something in the darkness had realized it was being heard. She pressed an earpiece to her audio port. Nothing but soft static, gentle as rainfall. Yet beneath it she sensed cadence. Her pulse matched the rhythm. Not words, not instructions. An emotion, impossible to name. She whispered into the quiet. I hear you. A soft ripple crossed the waveform, perhaps coincidence, perhaps reply. Petra exhaled, heart quickening, somewhere processing deep inside the Sol Sovereign. Nova's subroutines logged a slight variance in signal latency. Not enough for alarm, just enough to be noticed. Bridge. Captain's final log for the day. Sarah Dean stood alone, lights low. She recorded privately, personal notes, eyes aimed through forward glass at a universe that suddenly felt less empty. Captain's log, 229001114, 2342 UTC. Structured anomaly detected. Origin Kuiper Belt outer field. Preliminary classification. Unknown intent. Mission trajectory adjusted. Fighter wing and ground squads on alert. Further analysis pending. This is why the Federation exists. To face the unknown with reason, not fear. End log. She closed her eyes, remembering a rescue she'd failed 8 years earlier. One signal she'd arrived too late to answer. Never again. On the holodisplay, the waveform's pulse quickened, just once like the skip of a heartbeat, then stilled. Nova 99's calm voice slid through the silence. Anomaly amplitude rising by 0.03%, awaiting orders. Dean inhaled. Hold course and keep listening. Location, Luna Prime. Pillar Council Conclave. Timestamp, 29001115. 0407 UTC. The Hall of Six was a circle of glass and basalt burrowed deep beneath Luna's gray regolith. Columns of polished obsidian curved toward a vaulted skylight, where Earth hung, blue and unblinking, in the night above. At the center floated a hololithic image of the Sol Sovereign, gliding toward the Kuiper darkness. Around it stood the chairs of the Pillar Council, each framed in their discipline's color. Teal, green, orange, crimson, amber, and royal blue. High Engineer Kara Njord broke the silence first. Her teal mantle shimmered with nanofilaments. Captain Dean has diverted course without prior authorization. Under Energy Protocol, propulsion expenditure beyond mission envelope requires Council audit. Across from her, crimson-clad Grand Strategos Alaric Seth lifted an eyebrow. And under defense protocol, structured unknowns this close to Sol justify immediate interception. We scramble a fleet, seize the signal source, confirm it's not a threat. The cognition architect, Zhue Zhang, folded slim orange-gloved fingers. Interception risks contamination. Data, biological or cultural. Observation is prudent. Prudent, Seth scoffed, or cowardly. Before Shui could reply, the chamber's amber quadrant pulsed. Miriam Tolani, architect of civil harmony, spoke softly. We tasked the Samstin, the Sovereign, with anomaly investigation. Captain Dean is within exploratory discretion. The supreme bioethicist, Dr. Ari Neves, draped in green, frowned. Only if the anomaly poses no biohazard. We have zero evidence to assert that. Prime expeditionary scholar Ibrahim Kasari, robed in royal blue, finally spoke. Evidence is what Dean is gathering. Do not shackle curiosity before we have the facts. Silence pressed in, broken only by the faint hum of surveillance drones circling overhead. Talani turned toward the hovering image of Petra's waveform, still nameless, still breathing. Captain Dean requests no additional assets. She cites Pillar 6 autonomy. Njord exhaled. Exploration does not override collective risk. But exploration, Kosari said, is how the Federation earned its sunrise out of the collapse. We fix what we study. Seth's crimson sleeve rustled. Or we die studying what we should have destroyed. Sol Sovereign, Captain's ready room. Same moment. Captain Sarah Dean stood before a smaller version of that same council hologram, only now reduced to translucent busts hovering over her desk. The private comlink crackled with encrypted latency. Talani's amber-hued avatar addressed her. Captain, you have the council's attention. Many urge recall. Dean clasped her hands behind her back. Council mandates 6.1 grants field autonomy pending threat classification. I have not breached that scope. Yet, Seth's red ghost rumbled. You have unknown code interacting with your ship's arrays. Dean's eyes flicked to Nova 9's silent icon in the corner. Unverified interaction. My AI is stable. Njord's teal hologram leaned forward. Propellant reserves drop with every course correction. Exploration budget didn't cover extended chase. Dean kept her face neutral. Exploration rarely fits into a budget chair. At that, Kosari's blue visage almost smiled. Talani raised a hand, amber glow bathing her features. A compromise. 48 hours observational window. If no new data emerges, you return to initial flight plan. Dean waited, jaw tense. 48 hours might be enough, or just enough to lose everything. Accepted, she said. Sovereign will report at 12-hour intervals. The avatars winked out. Dean exhaled, slow, controlled. Deck 8, Barracks, Irontide Squad Lieutenant Cassian Rourke finished recording a readiness log while squad mates remag-locked their heavy exoframes. Private Morales, no relation to the commander, murmured, "Think we actually see action, sir?" "Action? Maybe," Rourke said. "War?" "Doubt it. Exploration jobs never pay in firefights, just nightmares." Sitting on an upper bunk, Shadow Viper's Sniper Corporal Aya Wen cleaned her stealth rifle in methodical silence. "Nightmares bullet holes can't fix," she muttered. Raul Santana of Hammerfall overheard and laughed once, dark and low. "That's why we carry demolition charges, friends. Sometimes you have to carve a way through your nightmares." Deck 3, Data Core, Night Cycle. Low amber lights painted long shadows across the lab. Dr. Salcedo hovered in a trance-like flow, data gloves plucking permutations from the signal, while Petra measured amplitude drift. "It slowed," Petra whispered, staring at the latest cycle. "Almost imperceptible." Salcedo frowned. "Entropy?" Petra shook her head. "Intention. Like it noticed us listening." A chill traced Salcedo's spine. She closed her console. "That's enough for one shift. Captain's orders." Petra hesitated, then powered down the feed. But as she turned away, the offline monitor flashed. Just once, then darkened. She thought she heard a second heartbeat, but it might have been her own. Bridge. Early ship's dawn. Crimson, teal, and orange arcs glowed faint while Alpha Watch rotated in. Commander Voss checked helm corrections. Drift minimal. Major Nassar housed her fighter wing in standby. Pilot strapped, but calm. "Anything new, Nova?" Voss asked. Signal unchanged. Awaiting next pulse in 7 minutes, 21 seconds, Captain Dean entered, nodding to the duty crew. She carried no data pad. She didn't need one. Her eyes swept the starfield. Beyond the viewing canopy, the emptiness toward 113K looked identical to every other quadrant of space. Black, speckled, infinite. Yet in its void, something breathed. 7 minutes later exactly, a new pulse bloomed through quantum sensors. Stronger, clearer. On Petra's console and data core, the waveform unfolded, not into language, not into code, into an image. A single spiral, like a fingerprint pressed against the cosmos. Petra's breath caught. Somewhere else on the ship, Kaido Sundaram felt his console ping, and his eyes widened. On the bridge, Nova 9 spoke with the first hint of tension Dean had ever heard in its voice. "Captain, anomaly amplitude increased by 17%. Pattern density now exceeds previous threshold by 3 orders of magnitude." Dean's pulse quickened. "Show me." The bridge hollow bloomed, amber spirals coiling, shimmering. Voss whispered, "Looks alive." Dean's voice was steady but soft. "Begin high-resolution passive scan. No active return yet." Behind her, red-lit Major Morales stepped into the bridge, arms folded. "Captain," he said, "defense stands ready." Dean nodded, eyes never leaving the spiral. Outside, the Sol Sovereign cut through starlight, heading deeper, while a memory from the dark reached back, stronger than before.